The Philadelphia Eagles defeat the Carolina Panthers 22-16 as they go to 11-2, Panthers fall to 3-10. I'm Camiscioli here today with Cade Gargano. We're Philly Sports Talk, and we have an interesting episode for you guys today as there's a lot to talk about, a lot of controversy, and Cade and I might not agree on everything, so this should be a good one. How are you today, Cade?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited to get into this because I know we've been debating over this last few days, so that's for sure.
Yeah, it's been a big thing, and we're gonna dive right into it. This was a very weird game. I'm not really gonna get too angry with this team. I'm giving them another week because they've proven that they can bounce back after bad weeks. They did it, against the Browns. They did it against the Jaguars, where they just really didn't play that well, and they ended up playing well the rest of the way. So I was very glad that we were able to just get the win because I am confident in this team to bounce back. But we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah, I think the Jaguars game was a little bit silly because I think they took if I remember correctly, they took a pretty big lead, and then I feel like they kind of took their foot off the pedal. This
Yeah.
one, they started slow and they finished slow, so it was a little bit concerning.
Yeah, so my first question before you kind of break down the game, are you confident in this team to kind of bounce back next week in a big game against the Steelers?
I yeah, I do think they're gonna win. Yeah, I think this is a really big game for me. I think if they lose this game, with the way the media is portraying them right now and the way that the AJ Brown quotes and all this stuff is coming out, I think this win against the Steelers could prevent a massive snowball, in my opinion, and that could be hyperbolic, but I really don't feel good if this team were to lose, even though I do think they're going to beat the Steelers.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been saying I think this is a very weird matchup, and we'll talk about the Steelers game later on and kind of what they need to do. I'm a little concerned about this upcoming game, but I was before this week. We talked about it. I just think it's a weird matchup. This is the one game I thought that they might lose, but we'll see. We'll hit a little game summary real quick. The tone was set pretty early and kind of felt like we were going to roll them. CJ came out, he crunched Xavier Leggett on that first drive. I kind of thought, we're just going to roll them now. And the offense did their normal thing in that first quarter, just very bad offensively. And then Gardner Johnson went down with an injury on the next defensive drive. Things got a little shaky, but Zach Bond had a big sack to force a punt. And we were losing 3-0 to end the first quarter. So, again, just another very bad start offensively. I really don't know the answer to it. I couldn't tell you because we can't establish anything going on offense. And maybe that's where Jalen Hurts is going to need to find A.J. Brown a little bit more and get us going faster and early, A.J. Brown and Smith. But really weird start to the game. And then the second quarter, the Panthers couldn't stop the run game, and we kind of needed to keep that going, which we didn't at times. And our first scoring drive was nice. They couldn't really stop us on that drive at all. But we were struggling to stop their run game, ironically. Chuba Hubbard had a pretty solid day. The Panthers converted on a fourth down on a fourth and goal to score a touchdown, actually, which sucked. And but C.J. Gardner-Johnson had that big interception late in the second quarter to kind of give us a jolt. And without that, I don't know where we would have been. Jalen Hurts finds Devontae Smith for a late first half touchdown. But the Panthers dominated possession that half mainly because of their long scoring drive.
Yeah, I feel like they every time they would hand it off to Hubbard, there would be a 5 to 6 yard run every time, and they did similar to what we did. They kind of got away from it a little bit. I feel like but their passing game actually kind of looked better than ours. I think Adam Thielen was open over the middle of the field, which I feel like the middle of the field is going to be a big topic of discussion for us today. But yeah, we couldn't stop their run, which was shocking. I didn't think the line got to Bryce Young very well, and when they did, he actually he kind of evaded them pretty well. He looked really good, and he has looked really good over the last few games. I don't know if this was, and I kind of want to hear your opinion on it as well. I don't know if this was a come off a hard game against Baltimore. You have the Steelers next week. Is this almost like you look past these guys a little bit too much, and then they come out and punch you in the teeth right away? Or I don't know what this was, but it didn't look pretty. And this was like their first real game, in my opinion, where it looked really bad. It looked like last year's team. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, I think it's up to par with the Browns game. The Browns game was really bad too. This one might have the slight edge. This game screamed trap all over it when we were going into this week. but I kind of thought we were past this. Like I remember telling you guys in our fantasy group chats that Eagles are going to roll them. Kenny Pickett will be playing football in the fourth quarter. But the Panthers, they were playing better football as of late. They have been a better team. So it's quite possible that we took them lightly, but I don't know. It was just very weird. Very weird.
Yeah, I really I think the biggest thing that we need to talk about isn't the defense didn't really stress me out. I think they had a pretty lackluster game, but I don't think the offense did them any favors. Hurts did have three total touchdowns. One was a tush push. I mean they were scoring anyway. Even though the Saquon did get stopped a few times in the red zone, and I thought that was kind of shocking. But yeah, three total touchdowns. The pass to Calcaterra was a nice pass. That was right over the middle of the field. He threw it pretty fast. But the involvement of AJ Brown, I feel like, is the big talking point right now, especially with how much is going on in the media on local radio stations and probably all over ESPN tomorrow. So that's the big thing.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So AJ Brown, when asked after the game what needs to be worked on, he said passing, just passing. He said it in a very kind of like just a way that was kind of just setting up for problems. And I watched a lot of the video leading up to this podcast of just like some of the game and some of what other people are saying. And I can understand his frustration, but I think it's disgusting that him and Jalen Hurts are taking it to the media to really address this issue, because Jalen Hurts said the same thing. He was not very happy in the press conference, and he told a guy when asked like what needs to be improved, or like it's something needed to be improved on, and he gave him an answer and then kind of just bluntly said no, like you heard me the first time. It's kind of disgusting that this is the way it's being handled, and that Brandon Graham goes on to WIP today saying that they used to be friends or something. They need to remember the business side of things. The whole situation seems like a mess to me, and I'm not really sure what to make of it. I do think these guys are going to bounce back. It's not like this team is not like last season, at least in my eyes. And Cade, I'll just go ahead. I know I've been going a little bit of a rant here, but I'll just go ahead and say what I personally believe of this is I think Jalen Hurts has the ability to make these throws. I think he has the ability to, I don't think it's because he's incapable of making these plays. I think the turnovers were an issue last year in the beginning of this season, and he was an MVP candidate as kind of a gunslinger the first 11 weeks last year. Like, we've seen him do it, and the turnovers became a problem. We said, don't throw more turnovers. Stop giving the ball away. He stops giving the ball away. He does, but he kind of just lays back a little bit. And is just not putting it in harm's way at all. And I think he needs to find a good balance between the two, personally.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think the big thing this year is the too high safety on defense, and I don't know if that has anything to do with how that's taking away AJ Brown or Devontae Smith, or if Hurts can't read it well, or if he can't whatever. But the too high safety defense is clearly giving some trouble to this team, and I think some of the reason that the passing game, it doesn't look good when it matters, is that we're not letting them get into a rhythm. I feel like we don't let anybody really get into a rhythm. I feel like Saquon rushes for 7 on first down, and then we throw the ball 2 times. Like you got to get these guys moving, and I think that's also a reason why the offense struggles early. It's like they prioritize themselves on wearing teams down at the line of scrimmage and running on them late because Saquon and the line's so good. But you can't do that in the beginning of the game when everybody's fresh. Like, that's when you got to pass. You got to get some play action in. You got to work the ball over the middle of the field. And there's not many deep passes either. Like, how many? Like, I feel like Devontae Smith would make one great deep catch a game last year and the year before, and it feels like they haven't gone deep at all. And when they have, it's almost like a ball where Hurts throws that only the receiver can catch, and if not, it goes out of bounds.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I believe personally. I just think he's completely taken the ball out of harm's way, which is not a bad thing. We've won 9 straight games in a row. So I think they're going to figure it out. I think he's going to try and prioritize getting these guys the ball more in the next 2 weeks, because I think he has it in him. I just think I think he listened to what the problem. The problem was the turnovers initially. That was the problem. AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, they were getting the ball last year, and they went through stretches. Like AJ Brown had like a franchise record last year of 100 plus receiving yard games. We've seen them do it. It's just he listened. No more turnovers. We don't put the ball in harm's way, and here we are. Now we have an issue because it's not being put in harm's way enough. So we just had to find a balance, I think. And I definitely think there's one to be made. He's got to throw it to A.J. Brown more in one-on-one coverage. When that's happening, he needs to throw it up to him. We need to get him going. He's a streaky quarterback. He kind of has been for a good little while now. And when you don't have that workload, because especially with Saquon Barkley, you just can't, it's harder to get into a rhythm. And that makes it harder for the receivers to get into a rhythm. So that's what I personally believe on all the Hurts stuff personally.
So here, I just looked this up on ESPN. The Eagles ran about 60 total plays on offense. If you were Sirianni and Kellen Moore, and I also think Hurts is a quarterback and a player that respects his coaches, and you could see that all the way back from college. So I think if his coaches tell him to do something, he's going to do it, and that's why I don't think, one, he doesn't make too many audibles, and two, I think he I don't know, but I don't think that the scripted plays in the beginning of the game are good, one, and I don't think that his ability to I don't think his inability to change the play is helping this team at all. But the Eagles ran 60 plays. What percentage, like how many plays should go to Saquon, and then how many attempts should he have? Let's say they have 60 plays a game on offense. How many times do you want him passing the ball?
Depends on the game. It really does. But more than likely, you're going to want the ball in Saquon's hand.
Let's say in a playoff game against the Lions, NFC Championship, how many times do you want him thrown if they run 60 plays on offense?
Again, it kind of depends on the scoring. But, I mean, you want to see a split. That's ideally what I'd be thinking of. And the only reason why I'd say a split is because, I mean, normally I'd say I want Saquon to get the ball more, but the split comes in handy in terms of the RPOs in which, the defense is heavily trying to defend Saquon and we're running the run-pass option play, and then something is open because they're either loading the box or they're just trying to focus Saquon Barkley. So I'd say you're looking at 50-50 primarily as opposed to one or two dominating the other. That's ideal. And for this offense, I'd say.
I would agree. I think he should be throwing the ball 30 times, and I think Goddard or Calcaterra, whoever's running the tight end in that day, whoever's healthy, should get 5 targets, and then I think AJ should get 11 to 12, and I think Devontae should get 8 to 9. I really do, and then the rest can go to Dotson or whoever else out there. But I really think that's how it should be. AJ Brown should not be getting, and let me fact check this really fast.
He got 4 targets last game.
4 targets. Like, he needs to be getting 11 to 12 targets a game. And it doesn't have to be like deep shots or medium routes over the middle. Like, he's so good at those slant routes. Why not give him those slant routes 5 to 6 times a game?
Yep.
I don't get it.
I don't even think he needs 11. I think he should be getting targeted 7 to 8 times minimum per game. There's going to be, with this offense, with how good it is and with the weapons, especially when Goddard is healthy, he just went to IR. There's going to be guys that don't have as big of a role in the game because there's just so many mouths to feed. It's just like basketball. You have 3 ball-dominant scorers on a team. They're not all every night going to drop 30-plus points. One of them might drop 10 points and not have to do as much. Just like Paul George last night. Tyrese Maxey triple-double, Joel Embiid 30 points. He drops 12. That's a perfect analogy in the way I see it. But he should at least be given the chance. And that's what 7-8 targets can be proven to be effective. Like if you look at the Rams game, I believe that's all he had. I'll fact check that. And
I'm fact checking right now.
It lets his yards after catch do the work. He's had a handful of games.
He had 7 targets in a game where they scored 37 points.
Yeah,
I still think that's too low.
It depends. It just depends on the way the ball's being distributed. At minimum, he should be seeing a minimum of 7 targets per game. So I do agree with you on that. And I really think it's just because he just doesn't want to put the ball in harm's way. I truly believe that in my sincere heart of hearts. that he does not want to turn the ball over so much that he is just completely abandoned taking away that deep ball game, which we kind of need that 2022 gunslinger mode
He
back
has
when
a
we
good
need
deep
it.
ball. He
No,
has a
he
good
does.
deep ball.
He does. So I listen. I think you can at least partially agree with me on this. I know you've had your doubts. I think he is capable of doing it. I just think it's a mental block right now that really this could next week we might see AJ get 12 targets and all this might be like, we figured it out. But I'm just for now, the last two games this kind of happened. But I mean, we could talk about this briefly. I don't think the Ravens game is a great measure of it because I know the Ravens pass defense is not good, but we kind of broke their defense down with RPOs and stuff. The way that our offense was running, I thought it was running pretty brilliantly. I know it wasn't like exhilarating and exciting, but we grinded out their defense in that win. And then before that was the Rams game, the Rams game is the ideal offense of this season. That's what I should say. That's what we're looking for in Jalen Hurts. And even I was going to say the Packers game without the terrible decision making. Like that's what I'm saying. The Packers game with the terrible decision making. It's like one of those things. He's gonna. I don't know.
But those were
I don't know.
red
It's a
zone
mental block.
turnovers. Those were red zone turnovers, and like I get if you're
Not the
nervous
one.
about.
Remember the one interception was across the middle, like deep in our
Yeah,
territory. That was a
yeah,
bad
when we were on
pick.
like the 5 or something like that. But
Yeah.
really, where he's been struggling the last 6 games of last year, and this one is turning the ball over in the red zone. It happened in Dallas. I'm blanking on some other, but that's when you should be using Saquon the most, and that's when you should be using those quick slant routes. Like we need to air it out in the beginning of the game. Like I know you want to get Saquon in a rhythm and wear that defense down so he can break one off in the fourth, but the first drive of the game, Saquon should get 2 carries, and Smith and Brown should each get 2 targets. Like it has to get spread out quicker. They're averaging 1 point a game in the first quarter with this team, and it's not coaching anymore. I truly think, and this might be bold.
I don't know what the answer with it. Sorry.
I think it's these route trees that everybody's saying, oh, they're just not getting open, like nobody's open. I really do think, and if you look the first, I want to say it was after the Bucks game or whenever it was, the route trees were unbelievable. We're like, this is the Kellen Moore offense. Everybody's open in the middle of the field. We scored 30 something points against the Packers. Everybody was downfield and open, and they were crossing and the mesh concept. And then we were 2-2, and Hurts was turning the ball over. And I really think Kellen Moore and the coaches were like, we need to simplify these routes. Like he can't operate over the middle of the field, especially medium. He can't throw a 15-yard pass down the middle of the field. He just can't do it. So you see guys running tiny slants and curls and these deep curls and go routes on the sideline instead of playing like, and I know this is probably going to bother you, but the Lions use the middle of the field, it feels like, more than anybody.
That doesn't
Amon-Ra
bother
St.
me.
Brown
It's the
right over
truth.
the middle of the field. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is not better than A.J. Brown. And I mean, I was going to say Devontae Smith's even better than him, but that's debatable. But I think there's teams operating better than us with less talent, and we can't keep blaming coaching. I think at some point you need to realize that the coaches adjust to what their quarterback can do. And I don't know if I think we're capable of winning the Super Bowl with Hurts. I projected us to go 13-4 and win the Super Bowl. I think we're going to still. But I think you need to start realizing that, not you in general, but people need to start realizing that he's not ever going to be top 5 again. He's not. I think these defenses have adjusted to him. They know what he is, and he is what he is, and it's fine. We can win a Super Bowl with him. He's just not top 5. He's a slightly above average quarterback.
I disagree and I agree with you at the same time because I do think he has the ability. I do. I don't think. Yeah, I mean, defenses adjust and they have adjusted in certain ways to Jalen Hurts, but I truly believe, like, this is just my personal opinion. Everyone's entitled to your own opinion. We saw it last year. The first 12 weeks, the last 5 weeks, disaster for everyone. We all know it. First 12 weeks, he was an MVP, the MVP. He was the MVP, even with that offense. The ball started to get turned over a little bit. Even like the offense was bad last year, like how it was ran with Brian Johnson. I don't even want to talk about that. But we saw him do it, and now the turnovers, they're not a thing. We're winning games in different ways possible, and I just think He doesn't want to put the ball in harm's way. And I think that there is a balance to be made here. Like, here, I want to see myself for this. Here, gunslinger, interceptions, danger. Here, balance, Super Bowl, 2022 Jalen Hurts. Maybe a little bit more right here is 2022 Super Bowl Jalen Hurts, but he wasn't turning the ball over. Here is what we want. He is all the way out here right now. If you're listening on Spotify, my arm is all the way in the complete other direction because he's just not taking the shots. But I think they're going to find a little bit of a balance moving
But don't you
forward.
think that's an issue? Him not being willing, because it's holding the offense back, dude. I don't care about, especially in the regular season, especially in these games against Panthers and teams like that. Throw an interception or two, like take a shot, like go for it, just one time, just go for it. Remember that was like the thing in training camp too. Oh, he hasn't thrown an interception yet, and then he came into the season and he was throwing interceptions. That's like just throw one. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like if especially if it's not in the red zone. The red zone interceptions are a little bit different. But let's say you're up 10-0 against the Panthers and you take a 25-yard shot on a post route to AJ and he gets cut off and intercepted. People are going to be like, "Oh, he turned the ball over." But I mean, if he has 3 passing touchdowns, 1 interception and Saquon rushes for 120, who cares?
Yeah, and
I
that's
think
why
in the
I think
playoffs is when you start getting maybe a little bit conservative, but I wouldn't even go that far. Like this is the time. Like he's just let it go, man. But like he doesn't want to use the middle of the field. What bothers me the most is Saquon as a receiving back is unbelievable, and he refuses to throw it to him in the flat. Like when Saquon run, like he sheds off a block and runs 3 yards upfield and like stops and curls right in front of Jalen. If nothing's open, Jalen scrambles to his right and throws it out of bounds. When he could dump it off 4 yards in front of him to Saquon and pick up minimum of 6. Remember the Seahawks game last year where he forced that ball downfield for the game-losing interception, and he
uh-huh.
had Kenny Gainwell wide open underneath? He
Yeah.
doesn't utilize the running backs in the short game down in the middle of the field. And like I'm saying, the middle of the field is a big issue for him. And Elliot Shore Parks, a writer for the Eagles, also said he doesn't like using the middle of the field, so they don't draw up these packages for him. Um, I don't know. I don't know because I like him a lot, and I think he's good enough for us to win, and I do think we're still going to win. But this Steelers game is a huge tell. If the Steelers defense shuts this team down, which they're a good defense, so I'm not expecting 30. But they need to come out and score a touchdown on the first drive. Or points. They need to get points on the first drive of this game. Or else, I think if they lose this game and the offense looks bad again, I think we're going to get a lot of what happened last year where everybody is coming down on this team, and I don't know if they're strong enough to handle that.
Yeah, I think they're going to find a balance. Kate, I left for let's see, I'm a college away. I left for college around. I left at August 22nd. Jalen Hurts has thrown 1 interception since I left for school. I'm about to go home for winter break. It's December 9th. He's thrown 1 interception since August 22nd. The ball is not going into harm's way. And that's credit to Jalen Hurts, but it's just flat out. It's not happening. He hasn't thrown more than 25 attempts. Well, I actually threw 28 against the Commanders, but actually I should say 30 attempts since August 29th against the Buccaneers, but he had to kind of throw that game. And then before that, it was against the Saints, 38 attempts, 30 attempts in the second game, 34 attempts in the first game. It's gone. They changed the offense entirely, and that I think they're going to find the balance. I think they're going to, but we'll see. And I don't. The Steelers game is a shame that it's right after this week because I really don't like this matchup for whatever reason. It just seems off to me. Something just
I don't.
and
It
it
doesn't look
it
like George
has.
Pickens is going to play.
Yeah, I don't know. And it was before this week too that I was saying this. It's just something's off with me about this game. But you know what? You're right. It is going to be a big tell regardless.
I think if they win this game, let's say they win this game and Hurts throws for 250 and 3, and AJ catches one. There won't be a single word. There won't be a single problem the rest of the season.
We
If
would
they
feel
lose this
really
game,
good.
exactly, and if they lose this game and Hertz goes, let's see, what do you go? 15 for 21 for 108 again.
14 for 21, 108 yards, two
Yeah,
touchdowns.
like that's not, and they lose. You're, it's gonna be bad because I don't think
Yeah.
this defense is gonna let up a lot of points, even though the Steelers have been almost high flying on offense with Russell Wilson. How about that?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Let's try to move on a little bit. It's gonna be a we'll have to see. That should be an interesting podcast, regardless of which way the coin flips. Um, Thank God for the Xavier Legette drop. I thought we should mention that because that was, oh my goodness, I cannot believe he dropped that ball. I thought he caught it, and thank God Darius Slay made a play after that, just trying to steal it up. So, CJ Gardner Johnson on the plus side said that we need to put our trust in them, and I do trust CJ Gardner Johnson. So we'll see. And another part, in large part of the passing game, let's talk about Saquon for a minute. Let's talk about some positive things. Is also because we have an RB that is on pace to break the rushing record, Saquon Barkley. Another 124 yards off 20 carries in this one. He's 483 yards away, and I did the calculations already. He needs 120.75 yards per game the rest of the way to break the record, and he could very well do it. I think he just might. We'll see.
I think he does. I think he does break it. Here's the question: if it's who do we play final week of the season? Giants, right?
Giants.
He could break it against the Giants.
That would be
Let's
crazy.
say he needs. Let's say he needs 100 yards to break it against the Giants. Even though I think he'll need a little bit more because the Steelers' defense might keep him under 100. Let's say he needs 100 yards against the Giants. Eagles have a game up on the Lions for the 1 seed. Do you play him?
Yeah, we have to win, and I can check the conference record. This Bills game, the tiebreaker is going to be conference record, I believe. The Bills game, the Lions can afford to actually lose that one, which is the ironic thing, because of it being an out of conference game. It's the other games that are the big ones that they can't really afford to lose. So I think regardless, we're going to be playing our guys the last 4 games because we need to get that 1 seed.
Yeah, I do think they're going to get the 1 seed. I really do. It comes down to the Steelers game. Like I said, the Steelers game is massive. I think Saquon Barkley is unbelievable. I think it's tough because Josh Allen just had 6 touchdowns. But if he breaks the rushing record, do you think he wins MVP?
I think he should. I mean, they lost that game, and Josh Allen was excellent, but a lot of it was Rams defense. They suck. Rams defense was also playing conservative when they were up by 3 scores. Not taking anything away from Josh Allen, but I'm just saying the facts. But it will be a stat line based award. But if he gets the rushing record, I think he should get the MVP, barring how those guys play.
I feel like people aren't taking into account the Eagles' record too. Let's say they finish
Yeah,
14-3, and he breaks the rushing record, and the Bills are, I don't know, 12-5. Like it shouldn't. Like it should go to him. And that's why I
yeah.
think this team is so dangerous, regardless of Hurts' struggles a little bit, is because you have guys like him. And I don't even think Saquon didn't like physically look like he had a great game. Like he had 124 yards, and
124. He didn't
yeah,
break open one that he
yeah, he
usually
didn't
does.
really. He had like I think it was a 13-yard run was his longest of the day, something like that, which is still
18.
18. Yeah, I mean it's still solid, but it didn't look like he was as dominant, and I think that's where it matters most for Hertz to pick him up a little bit. Like
Yeah, he still
those
had a good game. He averaged around 6 yards per carry, but like it wasn't the Saquon from previous weeks. I know what you're saying.
no, and it's so funny that he averaged 6 yards a carry for 124, and we're like, oh, he didn't look that great, but he did. But those what the Panthers did, they made us throw on important downs. It felt like it was 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4 every time. Like it was never 3rd and 2. It was never 3rd and 1 to where we could tush push. Like they made us throw on important downs, and we couldn't really get it done. And that's what scares me a little bit about this Steelers game.
Yeah. So we talked about some of the big controversies. I have one more to get to in a second, but I want to say a couple more positives. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean are the highest rated corners in the NFL. Quinyon Mitchell 82.2, Cooper DeJean 81.2. They stand alone. That's unbelievable. Seriously. So just caps or hats off to Howie Roseman for pulling that off. Same thing with Zach Bond. He had a sack and 3 tackles for loss in this game. Jalen Carter 2 tackles for loss. Um, Masterclass by Howie Roseman.
Yeah, and interesting fact, I just looked it up. The Rams, the year Eric Dickerson held the record, the 1984 Rams, They had 2,400 total passing yards that season with 17 passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
So very clearly, I mean, the passing game takes a hit when you have a running back that good. Just want to let everybody know that is normal. But but still, it's those important downs that I worry about. I don't care about the numerical stats as much as I do how he looks. And I think when the ball is forced in his hand and he needs to get it out, I'm not 100% confident in him. Whereas 2022 and even the start of last year, I was. It's almost like when he goes to throw, it's like I think he's going to complete it kind of thing. Instead of, like, I think he's going to make the right read, or I think he's not going to roll out right and throw it out of bounds. But you don't really know, and I feel like that's where things need to get a little bit cleared up, and we need to get more confident in that before the playoffs start.
Yeah, we'll see how he answers. Let's go into the next, really our last point of conversation, but it is a big one to be held, especially as the season gets later. Jake Elliott missed another kick, 52-yarder miss in this game, would have been his season high, and then he missed an extra point that was thankfully called a penalty. So we elected to go for the 2-point conversion, converted on that. This is an issue at this point, and the kickers around the league are having a down year. I'm sure you've heard it everywhere. But this is something that's going to be a problem in the playoffs if it does not get solved. And it is affecting our coaching decisions because late in the fourth quarter, when we could have made it a 2-score game, actually, I don't think it was really that late in the fourth quarter. I think it was around middle of the pack of the fourth quarter. We elected to take a penalty and punt when it would have been, I think, a 55 or so yard field goal, which normally that's something that we attempt with Jake Elliott.
That was really late, I thought. I thought that was the punt for them to have a
Actually,
chance to
yeah,
go
I
down and
think
score to win the game.
Yeah, no, sorry, scratch that. That's exactly right. I have my ideas mixed up.
I think it
But
was like
that's a
two
big
minutes, and
decision.
yeah, I agree, and I think Sirianni made the right choice.
Yeah,
Credit to him. I think pinning them deep on their own. I think Avante Maddox caught that
the
punt right
two
at like
yard
the
line. He
four.
made a very
Yeah,
nice catch. Yeah.
yeah. I think that was the right choice. You have faith in your defense, but we could have went up 9 with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left if we had confidence in our kicker. And I agree with you. I think that's going to be a big issue because 50-yard field goals in today's NFL, those are huge shifts, especially in playoff games. Huge shifts because it feels like every playoff game comes down to 3 points. It feels like, I mean, that's probably not true, but it feels like every single one comes down to a field goal in some capacity. And Jake Elliott's been good for a while, and you just need that confidence in him. And if he can't hit those, there's a bigger issue on our hands.
He's missed 6 field goals so far this year. He missed only 2 last season, and I don't know. We're gonna have to figure it out. He's gonna have to figure it out. It's concerning. It's very similar to Justin Tucker, so I don't know, but it's going to affect our decision making unless he can figure it out. I think we're going to put our trust back in him for when we need him this upcoming game or the next game. And if he misses again, then there's going to be some conversations to be had, and decisions are going to be a lot tougher. So that's that with that situation. Do you have any other comments on the kicking situation? It's a
No,
problem.
I just hope it doesn't come back to haunt us because if we lose a playoff game by 3, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be livid.
Yeah. So very intriguing game. My full-on honest opinion, to keep it short and blunt, I was just okay that we got the win because I do think this team is different from last year, and I think we're going to figure it out. So I was glad that we survived. But, there's definitely some cause for concern, and we're going to see what happens next week.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much in the same boat with you. I think, and last year I feel like we were almost saying a win's a win, just to cope a little bit. This year, I think a win's a win. It's a good win. You got it out of the way, and I think the Steelers game's a huge tell. I think this Steelers game is going to spark a lot of conversation if they don't win, which is maybe unfair because they're a really good team, and
Depends on
it's
how we lose, if we lose.
yeah. I mean, let's say everybody has a good game and we just lose because the Steelers are a really good team. That's fine,
Yeah.
but it's going to be a big game, and we're going to have a lot to talk about next week.
Yep, 4:25 on Sunday, probably the biggest game of the year at this point. The Lions, they beat the Packers on Thursday Night Football, lost some gutsy calls by Dan Campbell, so we stay a game back. I personally don't think they're going to waver, even though they've won a lot of close games. I think they're going to get the 1 seed, but it's still within reach. They have a tough end of season schedule. We'll see what happens. Everybody go follow the Philly Sports Talk Instagram page. That is Philly.sports.talk _. Go follow the Twitter, Philly Talks _. And obviously, this podcast is on YouTube. If you're listening to it on Spotify, go give that a listen. We're going to see how we can upgrade and make this more entertaining and better. Again, this is just our second time doing this, but we'll see. And we'll talk about the Juan Soto signing coming up as well. That affects the Phillies a lot, and that was a crazy signing. So more podcasts coming out. Cade, any last thoughts?
No, I'm excited for next week. It's gonna be a fun one, I think.
Yes, it should be a fun one, and I'll be the only one in my house because I have an exam on Monday while everybody else will be gone. So I'll be watching the Eagles game in my Jalen Hurts jersey alone in this house, hoping for a win. And I couldn't think of it any other way. I need to be alone next Sunday
Yeah,
because it's a
I
big
agree.
one. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. Go Birds.